This is Kal Kat, and we're in the studio for the Trans Saga, and we have a storm of robots playing here. It is twisted. All right. There appears to be a cat on the screen. It's a cat, neighbor cat, taking a dump on the lawn. This is one of my first tapes when I was about 16 years old. Some parts of it are from when I was 15 even. And this is the commentary for the Sneak Storm. There's the original, well, we had passed for credits back then, the original credit. Dug the Hills. This has been edited and reproofreaded and all fixed up, so you can actually watch it coherently. There's Jetfire, and we're in the studio doing this. This is really before most of the trans voices. I don't think Clint Cowpoke really technically existed at this point, but Kal Kat and Silly Kelly, of course, and Billy Allen, Creech and Crutch. The radio sketch guys did this. The KATS guys, the slash K10 slash Pirated Press Productions. This is a much better version of this than the original was. And although it is still kind of incoherent, I've done a good job of cutting out all of the really, really strange sort of mess ups and screw ups in it. Yeah, I remember doing this, and I remember that it was probably a day of just messing around, day and a half, went outside and stuff. Some of this early stuff, like this part here, and some of the other parts outside. My nephew David was in this. My half brother, my father was very old, so he had a group of family members, stepchildren 20 years before me. So I had like a half brother, Robert, who is now in his mid 60s. So my nephew David and niece Lisa and my sister and I were around the same age. So David and I were like brothers at the time. So David was in some of these trans movies. Not so much this one. I think he has a cameo here and there in the background as a voice. Not listed in any credits because there really weren't any credits, but he's in there. Jetfire is doing his deal here, and so that's what he's doing. He's got Jet. There's Jetfire. He was one of my favorite Transformers. The reason that there aren't very many of them, and there was a pact at the time, was that the pact was the only Transformers I had. So I had these Transformers that were, I only had a few of them. I had Jetfire and some of the Decepticons. I had Thundercracker and looks like Sunshrieker, Sideswipe. Sideswipe was the first one they had ever got. Martha, my sister, got me the Sideswipe for a Christmas present, and ever since then I was collecting them. Here's some of the cars. There's some outtakes on here that have the cars doing dialogue, which you'll see later, in which the cars were doing their thing and doing dialogue. And they were, I thought that you would imagine upon seeing it, or if I filmed it, that the men with the cars would actually be audible. Like you could tell they were drivers in the cars. In my imagination, I imagined, zooming in on the drivers in the cars, even with that crappy camera, and having like a little G.I. Joe or something in the car, and he's talking to them. However, when you see this on the screen, you can't tell that. You don't see them. You don't see any drivers in the cars. It's nice that the Transformers talk on their own because they're robots that change into cars and planes and things. So I never envisioned a story like the later Pixar movie Cars, where the cars were alive, or the Techron cars were alive. I always imagined them with drivers. And when robots that could change into cars came out, I was like, wow, mind-blowing. And here is Devastator's attack on the town, on Oakland, even though it's a forest for some reason. It's the backyard. And, this is considerably edited from the original. And it's cool that you can tell that I have fixed some major plot errors in here just by cutting a lot of stuff out. Yeah, you've got Jetfire doing his deal with it. Even though he doesn't have Forest Fire putting out equipment, he somehow has that. He's able to use that. And there's his cars. There's a little more of that in the outtakes showing what the cars are doing. And there, the heat of the battle, the forest fire. That isn't really a forest fire. It's just me turning up and down the light sensitivity on that crappy 1984 camera. This is an 86, incidentally. I was 15. March of 86, roughly. March or April. It's all filmed probably the course of 2 days, which is probably, and no script, which is why it's so disjointed and odd and strange. So yeah, I'm going to pass the mic to Silly Kelly, who was on this thing. Yeah. I was one of the cars. I was Admiral. I was Ake. I was a bunch of guys. I think I was Sunstreaker. Yeah, I totally remember this. I totally remember this being really weird and like, oh yeah, there's the dead Christmas tree, and like, and damaging Devastator there and killing him. I'm not sure who directed this, if anybody directed it. But yeah, David is actually the nephew is actually there when we filmed this, but I didn't show any pictures of him. He was there, and you can see him in a couple. You can hear him in the background, but just for that one scene there, and then he lost interest. Later, as he got a little older, he really lost interest. He didn't want anything to do with us. It's like, yeah. Yeah, we were always after Oakland for some reason. We wanted to get rid of Oakland because it was like our version of Cleveland, Ohio. They always making jokes about Cleveland. It's our jokes about Cleveland. Yeah, so here we have Oakland and the gunship. Yeah, that's what you should say about most political pundits. Shut up. But here we have... wow. I don't know why we didn't turn some lights on in some of these scenes. Why we thought that was a good idea. This edited version, we took out all of the gonks and darkened parts, and didn't bother like fixing the light because it doesn't make sense anyway. So this is just random Transformer fight with some Carta that are going to come in later, and yeah, so that's what it is. There's tracks. Yeah, this is actually much better than it was. It's easier to follow, actually. And it... where is Skyfire? We had this pact because, yeah, as I said, not enough Transformers. We had the idea of making Transformers and Legos together. And space Legos together. Long before there was any such thing as the Creo Legos or the Bionicle or the Star Wars Legos or all those other kinds of Legos out there. This is way in the 80s when we had to invent that. Of course, only somebody who worked for Lego could come up with all that other stuff later. You know, we couldn't. No one's gonna listen to us. But there's Sideswipe. Why wasn't Thrust pissed? I mean, here's the Ake part. Apparently, yeah, let's explain this. Well, apparently this part is... first, I didn't really like the G.I. Joes as much as I like the Transformers, but for some reason I was more worried about their copyrighted names, so I didn't use the name Ace. I said Ake. It's Ace. It's supposed to be Ace in a Sky Striker, but for some reason, no, he has to be called Ake. And had, like, David commented on that during the filming, I probably... no, it's Ake, because I don't like G.I. Joes. Like, that's not a reason. Like, I liked them later, actually. I liked them later on. We were making Trans Tech. I learned to appreciate the G.I. Joes. There's the Carta aircraft carrier, which is later going to be in Carta. And these are the early Cartas. So we're going to go on to the Carta movie. But here is Ake. And here's a lot of these were model rockets. They had model rocket engines stuck in the back of them to launch. If I had launched them, they would have blown up on the pad, especially that heavy one with the two twin booms. That thing would have exploded, which would have been awesome to film, but would have probably caused a fire. We should have totally blown it up, though. It would have been awesome. Cartobotic and the other Cartas became the Cartas. Here is some action stuff. It is interesting looking back on this and going like, oh my gosh, what were we thinking? I'm doing this over again because, this is for the new 2012 box set, I guess. Oh, yeah, Transabot. He was supposed to be the Busicons linked together to form a gestalt, but Transabot. So he was the Busicons together. And the Busicons go back to Jason Crenson of Pine Hill, who at the time in 85, 86 was contemporary. He's about 10 or 11. Pine Hill was a junior high and a high school and a grade school together. So it was a small school. It was at Pine Hill. Tim Cantrell at the time and Jim Bufkin. A little bit, 86. John Yeager, late 86. This is before John Yeager, though. This is mid 86. And this is a little after Jim. So we get to put our Transformers in the classroom and everything and play with them. And sometimes, not during class, but a recess if we wanted to. It was a strange school. You can see some other stuff. I can comment on that, too. But here is the space Legos and all that. The little robots down there. The little robots, you can see them briefly at the bottom, were later featured in their own little movie vignette thing by nephew Danny, who at this point is a baby, but, not even born yet at this point. This is before he's born. He's born in May of 86. And he's later in it at about 5 or 6 and then 8. The little robots later appear in that. So he would be the demographic. There's the little robots. And there was a different group of little robots in the later stuff. It wasn't the same ones. But they were very similar to those from this one. They didn't really repair it in the middle of the night. I just paused it and went on to the next thing. Oh my goodness. Okay, the Cartobot. I cut the transformation out because it didn't look like anything. Don't worry about it. He transforms again. I guess he didn't need to. Jetfire was kind of mean in this, and he's like blowing everybody away, and it's like, what was I doing? Decepticons, retreat! Oh, gunship is dummy. Yeah, gunship. Oh man, those Lego Cartobots. Wow. Kal Kat. Oh, we had video games back then. We had like role-playing games and stuff, and this was not scripted like they were. We made up making stories out of them. It's funny looking back on this, seeing how odd these and very creative these were. Actually, these Carta were interesting, like the face painted on or whatever. But yeah, this is the genesis of the Carta, and it's really trippy. Looking back on this whole thing and the trans, and going like, wow, I just, yeah. So here we are. You can actually follow it, and it's interesting, and yeah. So, you shall crush me. Why? Okay, that was David. He was there. That scene. They didn't show him, but he was there. So he was there for that little part right there, and the Devastator part earlier. And he's probably thinking like, okay, I'm kind of bored with this. I'm gonna leave. But yeah, there's a Coptic Carta on there. So didn't fire that good. There was some interesting. Of course, we were the same age, so we were in the same group and demographic. So I don't know why that he didn't just David and just but it's the incredible destruction. that you can't see. Yeah. So Devastator. Boy. Just the whole weird sort of like hyper transformer action that this is just interesting. And then they rebuilt him as that guy, and it's like it's just it's not horrible, but it's not great either. I mean, for something done by a high schooler with a camera on his knee, it isn't bad, actually. About disappointed him about my niece Sarah's age currently. The current niece, one of the current nieces. So looking back on this, I was clearly a Transformer computer nerd, toy nerd, collector guy. I still am. I've collected all of the generations since this one. Each new generation that comes out, I usually get some new ones, and including the latest Transformers Prime. There have been several Transformers series over the years, but the reason that we did this initially was because, and I've commented on many other commentaries about it, was because there were too many reruns. We couldn't get enough of Transformers, even though the first two seasons, 84 through 86, before the movie, they showed over like 50 episodes, but we just couldn't get enough of it. And Robotech, which was also on 85 episodes, which was 3 discrete series. And so I decided to film my own. And so I got my toys out, filmed my own Transformer movies ages before the internet. It seems like another generation ago, and it really is. It's 1986, and no one had thought of this yet. Maybe I was naive and thought maybe no one had thought of it. I'm sure other people did, because now in the age of the internet, you can go and see everybody doing their own little Transformer vignette movies. I wouldn't post this on the internet, though. It's really bad. I have posted Trans Tech 1 with the music fixed, and 2 and 3 are coming out. But they're kind of long, so I've only posted 1 for this last month, and waiting to see how people like it. I will do other vignettes in the future. I would like to do other like short ones, put them out there, Rebel stories and stuff, which would be fun, just like little snippets and things. But we're doing Star Trek Chimera, our Star Trek thing right now. We were doing Silly Trek at the time in '86 as well. Chimera is the new version of that. So the Transformers show, the Transformers, what we did with this was to have, we followed the show, and the Transformers movie would eventually jump 19 years into the future to 2005, completely bullocking all the sequels. So Battle of the Alicom had to be further in the future and all that. So, which we didn't know at the time, but this is before the movie. So we had that whole era. We could have just had it take place during that 19 years. Didn't think of that. And as we got more and more of them from the movie, then it threw it off. So after, basically the Transformers history goes like, after they did Generation 1 and a third season, 1986, 87, in the movie they kill Optimus Prime. And so they had to bring him back around near the season finale of season 3. And then in season 4, they get the rebirth and they revitalize Cybertron and they end it. And that was 87, 88. Unlike G.I. Joe, which aired its first season a year earlier than Transformers, did a second season, aired a bunch of episodes, did a third, half of a third, jumped over to another production company, Deke, after Hasbro did it. Hasbro was doing Transformers as well. And they did others in the 90s, G.I. Joe, 90s, 95, G.I. Joe Extreme, and then several others after that. Now, Transformers continued in Japan with other Transformers shows that we only knew fragments about from other kids that had read about it. Because there's no internet back then. They would have read a booklet or a TV program or something, or gone to the Heidi's Toyland store or the Toys R Us and heard about the Diaclone and the Destrons and the Cybertrons, as they're called over there. And there was another show apparently after over there in Japan, it was called the Headmasters. And then that was in 88. And then in 89, there was 89-90, there was something called Transformers, sort of Pretenders Saga. That was called Transformers Godmaster Force. And then in 91, there was Transmasters Victory and Zone. And it didn't continue in America until 1992 and early 93 with the launch of Transformers Generation 2 toy line, in which they took the original Transformers and they retooled it and put computer graphics over it and really messed it up really royally. And that was during our making of Trans 2, so that was around the same time. Coincidentally, ours came first and then theirs followed. Totally coincidence because they didn't know about ours at all. We never released this anywhere. We wanted more, so we kept doing more. We never let it die. In 1990-91, when we did all these other adventures, 87 and stuff, 91 through 91, we did all these other Trans movies. This was Sneak Storm. There was Battle of Amalcom. There was Reunion of the Cities, in which the camera broke and the camera people messed it up. There was Till All Are One, which was our script that we actually wrote. Me and Tim and Jim wrote it. And there was Final Adventure in 91. And then in 92, 93, we started Trans 2. And we got John Yeager or Mark's Cards on board. And then we did, well, of course, we did the Carter movies in 87 and 80 and 94. We did Captain by Decree when Danny was a little boy. And we brought that in there. And we did the Trans 2 movie in 95. And then we did the Blair Witch parody in 99. And kept doing them all the way up until Trans Tech started production in 2001. We never stopped. And the Transformers saga never stopped either. In 1995-96, they announced a new show called Transformers Beast Wars. It continued the Beast Wars saga. It's set in the past. It was originally in the future, and they go through time warp back to the past 4 million years ago, and they encounter the old Transformers at one point in the Beast Wars. And then they went to the Machine Wars in the future, and then and way off in the future. And then they retconned that into the Japanese stuff. The Japanese were doing, and they just redubbed it as Beast Wars Neo, and then Car Robot or Robots in Disguise. And then they that was with Transformers and Predacons, which was interesting. So they combined the Beast Wars and the Transformers, the car ones. They brought back the car ones in Japan. Then they made a new series where they sort of went in a deal with Hasbro and Takara Bandai and made a deal with them and said, we're going to do a new Unicron trilogy and we're going to call it Armada. It was 2002, and then 2004 was 4 or 5. Well, Armada was over there, was called Micron Daihatsu. And it was means small microforce battle. I think that's what that means. Microforce fight, microforce war. So the Micro Transformers war with the Minicon war. And then there was Energon, which is called Transformers Energon. Here it was Transformers Energon over there. And that was called Transformers Powerlink Force over there. Powerlink Force. Or Micron Powerlink Force, something like that. And then they had the third one, which was called Transformers Cybertron here, but over there it was called Transformers Planet Force or something, because they had the 4 planets. Planet Key, Cyber Key Force. Transformers Cyber Key Force, yeah. So, then they had the new ones, Transformers Animated, and the Transformers movies, Michael Bay, 2007, 2009, and 2011. They had Transformers Animated, 2010. That was set in the 24th century after Beast Wars. They went back and they retconned it. And they did Transformers Prime, which takes place in an alternate universe from the movies, but it references the video games which came out, which were really awesome. I haven't played them, but they look really cool. So the Transformers is really big again with the new generation, Dan's generation. But they're the generation that grew up on Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles. So of course in Trans Tech we had to reference that. they didn't realize how truly cool the whole thing was until they all got it themselves. They were into it. There's this new Transformers thing is coming out, And I was back at San Jose. John and Tim and I went on to college after Pine Hill. Tim dropped out. John and I went on to San Jose State a couple times. And by 2007, we were both at State. And at one point, there was that new Michael Bay movie. And it had come out. And Peter Cullen is in it and all that. And John didn't really like the Michael Bay movie. I thought some of it was cool. And later on, I retconned, edited my own version. but and then his sequels. But at one point, there was a episode where a story where I was doing the on-location journals and stuff. And I had noted that the Spartan Daily newspaper staff at San Jose State, where I was at, they were in the little student room thing and talking about Transformers and doing voices and stuff because they were younger guys. They were like, man, if you're Dan's age, we're in their 20s. I was in my late 30s at that point. And so I was all, oh, yeah, I remember that show. I know some of the voices, too. And they're all, okay, do some voices. Oh, you're all like, well, we will fight the Decepticons. We will find them and crush them. It was all Megatron will not be destroyed. And it's like, wow, that's pretty good. But back in the day here, with this one, back in the day, I did not do the accents and voices right. And, yeah, so none of them sound right. They all sound like me or Kelly. Yes, I was Starscream in this one, I think. Yeah, probably. Later on, it's Fruity Guy or Size Bass. But I was, revenge. Skyfire's revenge. Why would he get revenge? Yeah. It seems like I'm repeating stuff that we talked about, but for the benefit of this, why not? Skyfire's revenge. The Stunticons for, I guess, a birthday present. So, I'll put them in it. And the Autobots show up. Christmas present. So this is a little later in 86, actually, when I had all these presents. So it's a couple of months later. So after the movie, but I had to acknowledge that it was still that time period for Trans. This is after Carta, actually, which is kind of confusing. Carta happens during it. And the Cartas do other things. So, yeah. So we were doing that here right now. Question is, why would they do that? Why would they fight each other? Well, I guess they could spar each other. But, yeah. I'm getting the vibe here. It's awesome. But, yeah, as for accents, we didn't know what we were doing. Ain't enough in this. Do-do-do-do-do-do. So, Transformers Generation 2. Bam, bam, destroy you. Why would he do that? His head fell off. I didn't even transform him correctly. What the heck? His face is plated. Menosaur's faceplate is off. The Robotechs show up. See, there was Trans Tech even back in 86. This is first season, first couple episodes of the Trans series. Robotechs, Macross. Those were the Matchbox guys, and they had like the little mini Veritex, little 1 in 60 scale guys, and they had those. Those were put up by Revell. It's model kits, and of course the SDF-3. The funny thing about this is like if the SDF-1 was a transformer, he would be a city. He'd be like Metroplex and Trypticon, and he would be invincible. He'd basically, the Pact could use him to destroy the Decepticons. He'd be even bigger than a city, actually, because he's really big. The SDF-1 is huge. It's like miles long. It would have to have all those Veritex in it. aircraft carriers stuck to its arms and stuff. It would really be big. Seriously, probably Fort Max size. It'd really be big. Like, yeah, it'd be, because if Transformers, because Veritechs are 50 feet high, they'd be taller than Prime. But I didn't think of that at the time. But yeah, Jetfire was a Veritech because that's an interesting story. And we know that story from the lexicon. On the show, Jetfire looks completely different than as a toy. A Jetfire, Skyfire. It's because they couldn't get permission from Takara Tomy to use that design on their version of him. So they went over to Bandai because it was cheaper. They went over to Bandai and they asked them, they were making Robotech at the time, and they said, can we use one of your Veritech designs as Jetfire? Okay, yeah, you can use our battle armored Rick Hunter Jetfire, like the Skull Eater guy. Basically, you can use Rick Hunter Skull Eater as the design for Jetfire. We'll just paint it all red and white and blue, white and black instead of gray and a little bit of black and gold or yellow. So that's what they did. They used the Veritech model. It's literally the same model. So I think what's trippy is when I did some of the other stuff, I paid homage to that. And when we did Trans Tech, at one point Skyfire gets destroyed, and the Robotechs happen to be there because it's a time warp story with a space bridge MacGuffin device kind of deal. And basically I just kind of established, oh yeah, he got destroyed and they rebuilt him as a Veritech. They went to the Robotech ship and they put him back together. And they said, you're a Veritech now. Which is actually kind of cool. So he's a Veritech now. So, and I know that at this point it is December. Not only the birthday presents, Danny is crying in the background. That's the baby in the background. So it's already like 6 months later. So it just jumped 6 months in the future. It jumped 6 months when they showed the box and the other scene. Now they're going to probably come up to a lot of this is really edited down, actually. But the other stuff was just baffling. It was just out there and weird and twisted. And I wasn't babysitting him at the time. He was just in the next room. But I was the babysitter when I wasn't making toy stuff. Usually there was a babysitter. And we would watch Transformers reruns. So it's like he grew up on it, warped him. We'd like to get him to do the puppetry. Maybe never. But yeah, this is no, we're not gonna get him. But I don't know. But I ask him. Maybe. But here we are. Here is. It's funny that he's a Veritech, but he is. He's a Veritech, and it's silly kitty. You're the new leader. There's still some rainbow noise in here, but I don't think it matters because the gonks are gone. Yeah, there's some stuff in here that's just it's random, but you took all the gonks out. Yeah, it's just random shit. Random gibberish. Now you got the aerial bots in here, and it's like, okay, they were cheap toys. I liked them, but they were cheap. Yeah, you need more toys. I got boxes of them in the closets and stuff. I got boxes of them over here. I have Fortress Maximus over here on the left. Prime's over there. Movie Primes and stuff. So yeah, here's Fortress Maximus. There he is. So he's dead. Fortress Maximus, only sleeping. I am Optimus Prime. Clobber the Decepticon. Yeah, I just didn't have a Prime yet, or I would have put him in it. The pact was done for that whole reason. There's a scene that isn't in here that was never really filmed properly until some of the later ones, in which David, my nephew, had thought, okay, some of them have twin brothers like Sunstreaker and Sideswipe. So David's all, you know what happened to Mirage's twin brother? Sunstreaker killed him in a rage. They were having a gun battle. I was all, that's awesome, but that didn't happen. But it'd be cool. So later on in Trans Tech, that happens. But it's in the future. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Having him fly away is not interesting. But yeah. So some of this is filmed like 6 months later, which is kind of confusing. And yeah. So. Yeah, we had a habit of making some of the Decepticons stupid just because we figured, bad guys are dumb. Bullies are dumb. Let's make them stupid. Blitzwing actually wasn't dumb. He conspired with Astrotrain in that one. Astrotrain and that other guy, Octane, try and take over the triple change. Or was Octane in that one? Triple takeover? I don't know if Octane was in that one yet. It was him. Those two guys, yeah, they conspired to take over the Decepticons. They built that city. So they aren't dumb. Yeah, they're smart. And there is the SDF Autobot, who apparently isn't really gigantic in this version. He's only a little bigger than Skyfire in this one. So he's not really that big. But he is the same size as Metroplex in this one. As a toy. But yeah, they couldn't make him, but he really to scale would be 9 feet tall. I don't think they or bigger. But yeah, they couldn't do that, obviously. So, we almost got Sideswipe repaired. So basically the SDF-1 is a worthless Hulk. You know what? He still doesn't have all his parts on, right? What's he doing? Little Minosaur doesn't have his little shield and his little face mask. Oh, wow. No, Minosaur's stupid. Minosaur wasn't dumb either. What's up with that? He was reckless, but he wasn't stupid. The Motor Master didn't talk like Grimlock. He talked like we didn't have the characters down too well. But yeah, he didn't talk like Grimlock. You know what's funny about this Cleveland cat and sheets and stuff is that was used up many years ago, and I found them on eBay. I wonder if it's up that eBay. About 23 years later, and I bought them again, so I have them. So like Cleveland cat commercial, got sheets and pillowcase. Is this the GoBot one? Now this is edited tremendously better. What's kind of ironic though, when they did Generation 2, Hasbro bought Tonka and the GoBot line and decided, you know what? Our rivals, the GoBots, have always sucked. You know what? We decided to buy them out, and now we're going to make GoBot Transformers. And one of the funny ones that they made was a guy called Windbreaker. I got that for Danny when he was like 7. This is hilarious for a birthday present. Windbreaker, the farting transformer. He wasn't really the farting transformer. It's funny that like some of the Transformers and G.I. Joes had the strangest names. We were making fun of that in an earlier one. And they don't know how much commentary there can really be on the other Trans movies because I pretty much covered everything already. But they're doing the Gobatronium thing. And yeah, we were thinking of gay Transformer names and gay G.I. Joe names. You know, like you got Starscream and Thundercracker and Thrust, Hotspot, Silverbolt, Fireflight and Blades and Defensor and Skyfire. You know, like all these strange names. And G.I. Joe's got strange names too. You You got Cobra Commander and Destro and Hardmaster, who was there. Oh, why did they name that guy that? Who was like the ninja guy, and of course Headman from he's supposed to be the kingpin guy. We're recently watching that episode of G.I. Joe, which came out on Shout Factory just recently. They re-released all the Deke episodes after Hasbro sold the G.I. Joe line to Deke to make the TV show, but they still own the rights. They just TV show in the 90s. And there was this episode where they took Falcon from the G.I. Joe movie, who was played ironically by Don Johnson, who played the guy in Miami Vice, the lead against the drug lords in Miami Vice, playing a drug addict G.I. Joe, so that they could have Duke come back, and he's out of his coma for some reason, which didn't make sense. So the drug addict G.I. Joe does drugs and gets his drugs from Headman. And they didn't realize how completely, not only screwed up that is, also that character kind of looks racist. Like he's a half Mexican drug pimp he was literally wearing a zoot suit. And that action figure came out again in like the early 2000s at Walmart. And our Walmart happens to be on the edge of the area of the city where all of the Latin American Mexicans go. So we go to Walmart and look for cheap toys there. Used to be back there. And we did Transformers and G.I. Joes for the Trans Tech movie, and I find Headman there. They've got Headman. They've re-released him in the zoot suit, the orange zoot suit and everything. There he is. It's like, oh my God. And I was looking at the toys and I was like, I gotta have this one. Little Mexican kid about 10. He's like, what is so funny? And I was all like, this guy. And I listed it up and he's like, that is funny. I want one too. It's like, he's totally racist. I gotta buy him. Make fun of him. He's like, yeah, you should break him like when you get him though, because he looks racist. He got a zoot suit. So yeah, maybe I will break him. Actually, I didn't break him. I just opened him and played with him. And got out my Falcon figure and had him give him drugs. No, I was kidding. No, I didn't do that. But I did open the Transformer and play. Oh yeah, the Gobatronium in this one for some reason acts like the Electrum from the Electrum episode. There's so many in-jokes to the show in this that it wouldn't make sense to anybody other than the novice of the show. And it's funny talking about Headman, but there are some other interesting ones like Sergeant Slaughter, Crystal Ball, and Cobra Commander, and Serpentor. And I believe that we called Cobra Commander Cunnilingus Commander at one point, which was pretty funny. And of course, Nemesis Enforcer was Oedipus Enforcer. But Slag, Sledge, and Swoop are Transformers. Menasor. His name is Menasor. Really? He's menacing. Well, it could be worse. Defensor, aerial bots. Yeah, they named the aerial bot guy. He wasn't Defensor. That was the other guy. Defensor was the Protectobots. Yeah, he was. The aerial bots turned into Superion, which sounds even fruitier. Somehow Superion. But I like to make Supreme and Ultra Magnus and Optimus Prime. Exactly. I will destroy you. Yeah, this is just... I think this was probably filmed over a couple of days, too. I don't think there's a script here. I just... really filming the whole season like crazy nuts going on. And I should be nearing the end of the actual movie and into the, pretty soon into the scenes that were deleted. Hopefully, we will find out why they were deleted. But yeah, looking back on Trans Tech is just a bizarre treat for the senses. Just, yeah, so, wow. So, well, Yeah, I went on and did all that other stuff. His sword is going downward for some reason. And of course, my hands are always in the way because I didn't. And I had warts on my thumb back then when I was a kid. Weird. It was really hyper. Lots of chocolate. I should have chocolate now, but I don't. Pity. It's hiding around somewhere. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Candy. Some kind of candy. It's a Starburst. It's an old Starburst. It's a Starburst fruit chew, and I'm going to eat it. And then we'll go south. Yeah, these don't go south. So, yeah. Well, it hasn't been around for 20 years or anything. So here we have everything is back to normal. The SGF Autobot. Starscream the Powerful. But it's like, that's actually Diaclone Starscream. There was this toy store in the back in the day. I think it was in the prune yard called Heidi's Toyland. They also had Robotech and Veritech there. Now, Robotech was a big show too. And there were 3 discrete series in the Robotech saga. There was the Macross saga. There was the first one, first generation. Robotech Masters, as they called it over there. Robotech Masters. New generation. Yeah. New generation, the third one. And Masters. Let's see, the Masters. What was the one that was called? Oh, yeah. Space Cavalry Southern Cross was Robotech Masters. And the third one was called Massopedia. It's an acronym for the Super Variable Fighter thing and the Legios and all that. And then you had Orgus, which was sort of a spin-off, but they didn't use that one. And the toy lines that went with them, there were discrete Japanese series turned into American. In the vein of Star Blazers, which also was popular. And Motor Master. And so I had this idea of like the Robotech's new Skyfire because he looked like a Robotech. But I didn't explain that. Now I've got Minotaur now has all his pieces on. What's funny is his sword keeps going, turning upside down. His little hand keeps going. Whoop. Yeah, let's do. Oh yeah, this is the Rosmacom part, but I didn't explain it. So like, right out of the blue, we've got these like good and evil Autobots and Decepticons that show up. And then the other story, we have the Rosmacom Exiles in Battle of the Alucom. Or the Alucom Exiles, same thing. And making fun of Allison. Somebody from Pine Hill days. And, but the Exiles, they were like exiles. Yeah. So, I had the Exiles. And we put these like other alternate Transformers in there. And later on, there was a season 3 episode set, in 2006 or so, in which they go to this planet of Transformers that the Rodimus Prime frees from this planet. And then we just decide to say, okay, that's Paradron is related to Rospocoms. It's one of the Transformer planets. So we sort of tried to retcon and explain that planet was similar. So in Transtech, when they refer to Omicron instead of Rospocom, it absolutely retcons back to Beast Wars, where they referenced Colony Omicron as well, relating to the planet Paradron as related somehow, even though it's not. Basically, another Autobot colony. But in this one, I didn't explain that. It's supposed to be an Autobot colony, and they come through the time warp to visit them. I didn't explain that. I just had them show up as alternate versions, like on the Enemy Within from Star Trek. It was really big in Star Trek, too. And so they just show up as the good guy and bad guy ones. Like, no explanation. Later on, I wrote stories in which they actually make that make sense by having them explain time warp happened, or they're colonists that look like them but they're not really them. They just look like them because they pretend to be them or something, which makes a little more sense. Yeah. Oh yeah. Heidi's Toyland. Heidi's Toyland was cool, and they had the Diaclones. They had the Autobots and Decepticons and stuff. Kal Kat was saying one time that we were in there. I was in there with Tim and Jim and them, and we had Heidi's Toyland, and there was a Robotech from Macross, the movie Do You Remember Love, which did air in theaters back then. We had it on video too. It's Attack of the Bionoids and the uncut version, which we got from John's friend William Kendrick and watched. So we had both versions, and we watched that. And so this Macross version of their movie, their Macross Saga, had this awesome trainer fighter that was called the Super Ostrich. The Super Ostrich. There was also the Island Seeker. Sounds exciting in German, but just means seeker aircraft thingy. Sounds impressive, but means spy plane, basically. So then you have the Super Ostrich, which means essentially Super Walker. And that thing was on display at Heidi's Toyland for $200. And at that point, a Transformer that's that much in $1985 or $86 is way out of the price range for anybody that's a teenager, right? There's no way. They were not buying that thing for me. I wasn't going to be able to get that ever. Fort Max Jim could afford. I guess his parents helped him save up for it. I guess he worked. He worked a little bit. He saved up for it. Bought it at he was working at the Spanny factory. He saved up for it and bought it. But that was back in the day. But so that was the biggest one then. But anyway, at Heidi's Toyland, there was this Transformer. Yeah. And this other guy, Asian kid, came in and bought it. A little older Asian kid. And it was gone the next day. So years later, it was $400 at a comic convention. Yeah, well, the funny story there, we've been over that on Transtech, but not on here. The guy that bought that Transformer actually turned out later on, ended up at my church, the church that I go to, and he ended up on some Star Trek stuff. And so, yeah, he said, yeah, I bought that guy. I was there at that Heidi's Toyland. I remember that. That was me. I was all, wow. He's a little bit older than me. He's about maybe 10 years older than me. Maybe 6 years older. Let's say he's 6 years older than me. But yeah. Okay, now we're into the deleted scenes. So yeah, he had that. And now, I did get one of those eventually. I got the smaller 1 in 60 scale trainer aircraft one. And then I broke him. I shot his little parts off and couldn't find him until I remodeled the room years later. But yeah, so I have that guy. I also got a hold of a Jetfire, and I had a lot of other Jetfires, and I painted one with the armor up to look like one. And then I showed the guy, I said, this is my version of this guy because I can't afford now he's $600. It's like, no, frick, I gotta buy that guy. I'm gonna just make my own with a Jetfire, and I did. So here we have some deleted scenes that are going on. Mainly, these deleted scenes refer to stuff that didn't work, transformations and things, and goofy stuff. The great sideswipe. And yeah, I can see why this would be on the cutting room floor. Orbot. Yes, the Orbots were Orgus. Yep. So it's like, okay, Blitzwing was just mistransformed. Oh no, the car dudes. Yes, as we said before, the car dudes. Here's a little David in here. 50,000 miles away. Other side of the earth. David. Transform! That was David. But there was like the mention of the Klondike in here too, as being the Rocky Mountains and the Klondike. That was pretty funny. The cars. As I said before, I imagined that there were people flying these things, piloting the cars. We said that. And it's like, yeah, like, we didn't imagine the cars as being alive. Transformers blows you away. The cars are alive. So, I can see why that didn't work. You get, that showing the wall and the fence and the city and the backyard where I filmed most of these outdoor scenes. There's a dog in the shot. I will give you more of the car robots with admirals in them, piloting them, and pilots and things. All the attack vehicles that are in my hand. And we just left this out as a deleted scene because you can't tell what's going on. The cars are there. They're in the shot. But you can't tell that's what you're supposed to be seeing. So it's like, wow. Okay. And it's just like, wow, baffling, completely weird. We did not know what we were doing at all, so we really can't be faulted for like coming up with a video that didn't make sense. Because really, we just made it up as we went. There's no quality control. Nobody said, oh, do this better and look better. Wasn't really until the mid-'90s when John Yeager or Mark's Cards took film classes and I did sort of two on the sly, and we learned how to film stuff because we did a Starcrackers movie and a Star Trek movie with ourselves in it, and then we did the Trans later movies and Cartas too, and made it visually interesting and usable. There is going to be a shot of a dog. There it is. There's the dog in the background. That's Nasheed. Yogurt's around there too. Two dogs in the background in the shot. And Skyfire, and David's one of two lines in the movie gets left on the cutting room floor in the outtakes. I'm so hard. I'm going to die, Skyfire. Yes, he should have said, get the dog out of the shot. Probably couldn't tell what I was doing. So we made these video games. We made Battlefield California. We weren't ripping off Battlefield Earth, though. We were just thinking, you know what would be really messed up? If California was like an evil rebel empire. Yeah, and Kmart was where they were hanging out. Because Kmart was really big back then. You can find a Kmart. Used to go there and get toy cars and stuff. Before Transformers. Some of those toy cars. And there was a Toys R Us on Berryessa. That was cool, too. And there was one in Sunnyvale. But mainly we went to the Berryessa one. It's closer. And so some of the David lines ended up in here. The follower cars. And he was probably on the screen. On the screen. And then, like, yeah, even he didn't mind this part. He's all like, yeah, let's just film it like that. I don't care. It was like, yeah, the follower cars, and they're going to do battle, and there's going to be cars on the ground near dog poo. Entire attack fleet of cars. How could they be a fleet if they're cars? I guess you kind of could have a fleet of cars, because you can have a fleet of limos, but still, and when that truck is completely not the same scale as that little monster truck there. So yeah, that thing would be bigger. His steep hill. Flat. And actually, the Corvette would be completely stuck in the mud. The Corvette. The monster truck could handle it, though. Little monster truck. He'd be okay. But yeah, this is... I'm going to attack him somehow. But I'm not going to show it because we don't have the technology to show that. Turning the light sensitivity up to show an explosion. Great. He's gone. But there's dog poop near him. 100 yards? What? No, it wasn't. It wasn't cool because it was kind of lame. But yeah, there's another like sports car over on the other side in the shot, and it was like that thing couldn't go around in the woods either. None of those are off-road vehicles except that one truck. There's a wagon, and the space base is interesting. But yeah. You could have left that in, but I didn't. Blinding light of power. Yeah, you kind of cut that out. But it didn't matter. No, it really didn't. I'm commenting on it. So yeah, I could... in the extreme heat. So yeah, looking back on this, it's just like, yeah, I don't know what I was doing. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there was a a movie called Pixar's Cars came out. But I was probably thinking, you were probably thinking along the lines of the Hot Wheels Heroes, which came out in the 90s and 2000s. Or maybe even some of the other stuff, earlier stuff, Pole Position. Probably Pole Position, it'd be before Hot Wheels Heroes. 86, yeah. Before Pole Position. The video game. Video game type of stuff. But yeah, it's like, I just didn't think to put people in it. And I wonder if that crappy old camera, we could have put things in it. I'm just thinking, no. I don't think so. No. Evil and the good. Yeah, bad guys, like the PlantCon thing. It was like, bad guys, it's just bad guys. Ooh, the bad guys. Ooh, they're bad. Psst. Yeah, because I had this bizarre... like, so you want the whole thing to just stop doing what it's doing. The what? Explosion? I just, yeah, I don't really think there's much more to say about the other videos except maybe the Carter one. I've really done it to death, you know. We'll talk about how the video Peaceatrons. Oh, and I'll blow this to Peaceatrons right on. That's my knee shot. And it wasn't that I was trying to be like creative with Dutch angles and showing like side shots and like screwed up angles. It's just I didn't know what I was doing. It's like, except they were the wrong scale. Of course, it never made sense on the show anyway. And Transformers, they were always doing stuff like Soundwave was the most notorious of them all. Soundwave and his cassette guys would transform down to the size of a Walkman cassette player. And Blaster also would transform down to the size of a Blaster or boombox. And it's like, how did they do that? How did they reduce themselves in size from like 40 feet tall to a cassette player and be... like, mass doesn't change with size and volume. So, either he's paper thin when he's 50 feet tall, or when he's shrunk to the size that Spike can carry him off, then he weighs tons, like thousands of tons, and there's no way they could lift him. He'd be really super dense, like the super densest diamond, or like solid, like super graphite man or something. What's a shot of the window there, background? That transformation on the aircraft carrier that didn't work. The camera can't pause like that. That's why. What were they doing? I never thought to reshoot something, that dresser's in the other room. But to this day, it was put back in the other room. But the enemy fire, okay. David's in there. But yeah. David's laughing. I'm laughing and David's laughing. Yeah, he is in some of these scenes. Yeah, he might deny it to us. I'll remember that. He was there. It's for some of it. But it's like... yeah. It's what it is. It's what it is. Well, the trans as Mark's Cards pointed out just tonight, it also stands for transsexual. Trans. Well, they weren't really transsexuals, but if they were, they'd be more than meets the eye. More than meets the eye. Transsexuals. Men in the sky. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, the screen is speeding up. Can the world oppose horniest of foes? Cobra. On G.I. Joe, the movie, like the Transformers, the movie, with killing Optimus Prime, G.I. Joe, the movie, they killed Duke. Even the director said they killed Duke. But because there was a backlash after they killed Optimus Prime, G.I. Joe movie changed the ending, so they made it sound like Duke was in a coma. So they changed the middle and the ending where he dies to he's in a coma. He's gone into a coma. And no, he's gonna recover, and it's like, no. And the director's commentary in the director version, it's like, no, he's dead. So the later one is the Deke reinforcement. So all the replacement GI Joes and Cobras, who would be 25 years older in the later ones anyway, because they would be older. They said they were the replacements in trans tech. You figure they'd be retired, and what was really weird, though, is like General Hawk retired but then came back in the Deke version, which is not canon really anyway. But I guess it can be for some people. The G.I. Joe, they had an episode where it was really strange, where they had a guy named Jackie Love, who was essentially supposed to be Bob Hope. And they had him get attacked by the Cobras and held captive till the Cobras, like, convinced him to jump into the fake shark pit, and then he jumped out. And they thought he was dead, but no, he was just in the shark pit. And it's like, Bob Hope? Did the G.I. Joe people realize that even though they would know who Bob Hope is, because the people that were writing it were like 10 years or more older than the target audience, but the kids watching it wouldn't unless their older parents watched them? So they'd be watching this going, Jackie Love, Bob Hope. I don't get it. Who is this guy? It's like 1991. They wouldn't get it. I got it because my parents were old. I knew who he was. But I doubt that, like, why they would make a show. It would be like throwing Johnny Carson into G.I. Joe. It is funny, though, that they had Geraldo Rivera, who is from our generation. He's a little older, but Geraldo Rivera was in that. He was called Hector Ramirez. But it's obviously Geraldo Rivera. It's totally him. You were really making fun of him. He didn't like the military back then. It's funny. But yeah, it looks like, what? That's weird. The Catico logo came in there. Perhaps it just wants to show more fuck-ups. Okay, more fuck-ups. So it's interesting that this is a completely weird sort of... Yeah, you can't show transformations with that old camera. That was a 1984 JVC of the type Marty McFly had in Back to the Future. It was eventually destroyed in the 2008 episode of Kal Kat Show beginning. We do the Kal Kat Show blog now. The Trans Tech is on there. And Starcrackers is on one of our blogs. If the internet had existed back in the 80s, we would have been all over it. But I don't think it would have been very good. It would have been this. So here we are, was showing some footage from much later. A lot of this was cut out because it was odd and it work. It's interesting to look back on the. Actually, a lot of this probably shouldn't be in here, but I guess for the first movie you wanted to have some fun, and we're not going to change it. So, but it's like a lot of lens flares. See, we can invent lens flare long before what's his name did. We're pausing here and just going, what the heck? It's just the hand in the way. Talking about G.I. Joe, real American homo. No, he wasn't. There was also wrestling. We were into wrestling. There was this one episode where one of the Transformers to wrestle at the end. Like, that was a great idea. No, it wasn't. But yeah, wrestling was really big, and we all did that. And Big Tim Cantrell, he was the one we couldn't move in the pool or out of the pool. And Tim would come in, and we tried to, all three of us, well, not John, me and him and his cousin, or his brother, depending on who was there. We tried to move him, and we couldn't move him. He drowned himself. So he just couldn't move him. He'd pile on top of him. He'd throw us off like a bear. But he would keep us accountable or whatever, or he'd even keep us from the bullies at school because he's a big guy. The bullies wouldn't know any better. They'd be like, oh, we're messy, beat you up, yeah. And Tim would go, yeah, you guys touch him, I'll make a pretzel out of you. Oh shit. So they wouldn't want him to be made into the pretzel. No. So. What is the most expensive Transformer in the collection currently? What was the most expensive one back then? Oh, let's see. What's the most expensive one in the collection now? Well, there was for back in the day. There was there was a Robotech that we had from that we put in Trans 2. That was a $250 Robotech. It was Rick Hunter's Hikaru Ichijo Macross Do You Remember Love, Rick Hunter with battle armor. It was kind of screwed up, actually. He wasn't really worth $250, but new versions of him are. So yeah, that was one of the most expensive ones. I would say after that was Predaking. Getting the original Predaking from eBay. It's probably about the same price. Yeah, Predaking. Now it's probably still Predaking, I guess. I didn't have all his parts. I didn't have all his sorts. Galvatron, maybe the Japanese Galvatron, about $100. Now he'd be about 150. So yeah, Fortress Maximus, right here. This is Jim's old Fortress Maximus. A complete Fortress Maximus with all his parts missing will go for $200. This guy, it was given to us the show for much less because he's banged up. For like, I think he was like $10 or something. But to the show, But it's interesting looking back on this, like doing all of this trans tech excitement. So doing the whole thing. We've got every generation pretty much, but we don't have all of everyone. We usually separate them. Transformers will be back. It's interesting. It's a story that interests us. We still do it, even during the even during the final adventure. The final adventure, and Martha, my sister, was all ironically saying we couldn't think of an ending for the final adventure, so we're all like, Martha said in the background, why don't they just like fall into the black hole and die? kill themselves. Ha 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 ha. And it was like, that's a good idea. They should all die in the black hole. It's like, yeah. If you're going to use a black hole, don't do it like that. But, yeah, that was angst for you. Yeah, there was this, we used songs later on in the movies. We used Jurassic Park music a lot. And not Weird Al so much. Transformers and movie music. Batman a little bit. We used Frank Zappa. We used some Alice Cooper. We had Hey Stupid in there. But it was the Bush version. It was a version. I did a cover of it. What? The Gobatronium again. So this is an outtake from the Gobatronium part. I find this very amusing. Yes. Yeah. So, I'd say more about what we're doing, but I mean, this is covering all of it in, an hour. It's an hour and 15 minutes so far. It's not really that long, but yeah. So yeah, the Trans Saga ran from 86 to 1999. And on the other versions of this disc, we did not include the Blair Witch Project parody or the Power Rangers Meet the Transformers. This one does. Includes everything. It even includes the birthday specials and the Christmas special. We did a Christmas special. It was called the Christmas Carol special, called the Christmas Trail, haha. And we even did a Christmas. We did a holiday special. It's really bad. I'd like to redo it eventually. But I think the charm of it is that it's bad and you can't see it. So, yeah. And we didn't want to do too much massive editing on it. We wanted to just kind of get the gonks out. Consider looking back on these like outtakes, we fixed it a lot. There's a lot of outtakes. And we made it actually look watchable. And these outtakes are just if you want to watch them. You can decide not to watch them. You can say, I don't want to watch these outtakes. They're not interesting. Or, you can just watch the first 40 minutes. But I like it that it gives an option. It takes out all the little taglines. Powerful. Well, and here we have some... I don't think I really needed that many outtakes on here. I'm not sure why I did that. I guess I just got carried away with the outtakes. But I'm not going to redo the commentary just to fix it. I'm going to keep the outtakes the way they are. So that you can just agonize through them. The outtakes. Now, the problem with some of these shots is the windows in the background. It just ruins it. As I know it's a bedroom and you can't tell that, but putting the window in the background and the tape is screwed. So. Because why does it hurt when I pee? Which is the Frank Zappa. That's over the Carta 2. Yeah, the Carta were our answer to the space dummy idea. Yeah, we made up our own Transformers and made the bad guys kind of stupid there too, and some of the good guys. But some of them were smart. The Cartas were the robots on the cheap. They were made out of cardboard and other things. Sometimes paper towel rolls, toilet paper rolls, assembled from various cardboard boxes and things. Kind of cool. Later versions of them were made over the years, in the 90s and then in the 2000s. The 2000s, we made them out of balsa wood. Didn't have any cardboard in them. Yeah. And some plastic was incorporated in some of them. We had female Autobot Cartas. We had all kinds of Cartas. What was weird is we had... hold on a minute. We had a Carta called Misfire. We were annoyed that the Transformers had a Misfire as well. Except our Misfire was Misfire, as in Pac-Man Misfire. So it was a chick robot. Didn't really look like a chick, though. And why do the Transformers have female Autobots? We made some Carta ones of them, but it's like, why would they have gender at all? I mean, really, aside from fanfic. I mean, they wouldn't really have gender. They're Transformers. They're machines. They wouldn't need male and female. They would just be machine. Even though it was kind of funny that in the Michael Bay movies, when the one guy said, "Oh, judging by her pheromone levels, they want a mate for the female or whatever." It was like, yeah, or his pheromone levels, mate to the. Yeah, Michael Bay. For all of the lording over that awesome new series that was like live action Transformers, we did our Blair Witch Transformers thing in '99, 8 years earlier. So, but yeah, live action with Transformers grafted into it, and of course it didn't look right, but we were doing it for fun, you know. So yeah, I liked the Michael Bay movies, but I didn't like some of the cheesy stuff, like one of them peeing on a guy and Devastator's balls in one of them, and and stuff like, or the crazy office guy humping the guy's leg, the one, or the robot humping the chick's leg, or whatever, or just a gratuitous hot chick, because okay, it's nice to have the gratuitous hot booby chick, but or in both chicks, but that isn't what Carly Witwicky was. She wasn't hot. She was like a sciencey bookworm who was like a dork. She's a geek and a nerd, but she was a good nerd. She like could figure out stuff Spike couldn't figure out. Spike wasn't smart. He was like in the show. He was kind of like he wasn't dumb, but he was sort of like an every man, every Joe kind of guy, like his dad. So yeah, he was sort of an every Joe. He wasn't a computer guy at all. Just every man. The computer guy was Chip. He was a computer guy. He could fix the battle computer on a Transformer with a Mac. He was ridiculously powerful, and he had a wheelchair. The first wheelchair-bound hero in the Transformer lore. The X-Men had Xavier, but Transformers had Chip Chase. So yeah, here we are blowing up stuff on my bed. That's another reason that didn't work, is because you can see the background. I broke a lot of Skyfires. I had 4 of them broken in various stages of disrepair by the 91, 92 movies, and the broken ones were featured in the movies when they were repaired. Skyfire was pretty expensive back then, about $30. So whenever they had like a cheapy one at Heidi's Toyland. What's funny about the Jetfires, I have 20 of them now. They're various stages of disrepair. They're rebuilds, most of them. I have lots of Jetfires now. Didn't really have them back then, but back in the day. And we used them for the Rebels and the Transtex. And I liked the Jetfire. He was a favorite. So was Prime. But really Jetfire. Rodimus Prime was Dan's favorite. And Hot Rod. But Hot Rod's a Transformer. And so we have like some... Jim's favorite was Trypticon. Tim's favorite was Omega Supreme. And sometimes Optimus Prime. And so we had lots of other guys out there and played with them. Trypticon and Megatron, I guess. One of Jim's favorites. John liked Skyfire and Megatron as well. So yeah. As a natural progression to use them, we are coming to nearing the end of this thing, and it is interesting. We could do other commentaries. I think I'm going to do one for the Blair Witch parody, maybe one for the Trans 2 movie, but I don't know about the other ones. I might do one for Carta. I'm not going to do all of them, though, because, yeah, I've said a lot. Okay, you are watching the movie, the first Trans season. Wow, this is interesting. Looking back on it, we are almost done. It is almost done. Night.